Wednesday night service has been canceled tonight at Union Hill, so here I am in digital format in the lovely outdoors of West Kentucky, smelling the fresh cut red oak in the snow. And it's been cold in Kentucky the last few days, like the sweat under your toboggan sticking to your forehead kind of cold. There was a weird heat wave last night because I went to bed, it was 7 degrees, and I woke up and it was 18. But it's been cold, and there are times where it's been dangerously cold. We have an outdoor boiler and went out to check it about 2:45 early one morning, and the wind chill was like negative 14. I didn't stay out there long. And I got to thinking, is it ever too cold for you to love your neighbor? Some of you absolutely despise cold weather. I get it, the most uncomfortable, torturous feeling in the world. And there are months out of the year you'd probably, hibernate and move to sunny South Florida until it got warm here. Some of you absolutely despise cold weather, but can the circumstance of it being cold be an excuse for not loving my neighbor? For some, it would seem like a very justifiable excuse. I'm freezing cold, I can't feel my fingers. There's this guy on the side of the road, but I'm cold, I'm going home. In the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke chapter 10, there was that man that was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, who was attacked by robbers, beaten, and left for dead. The man was helped by the Good Samaritan, right? But the question is, what if it was cold? And you hate cold? What if it was like below zero that day and you yourself were barely able to stand it? And you came across this half-dead, beaten man on the side of the road. What if it looked a lot like this? And you're in danger of frostbite the longer you stayed out. Would you take the time to bandage the man's wounds, put him on your own animal or in your vehicle, and look for the nearest lodging and take care of him like the Good Samaritan did? Or would it be one of those priests and Levite times where you see a love your neighbor situation and there's the opportunity for you to help right in front of you, but it's cold, I'm going home. It's a dangerous situation. A situation that compromises my security, that compromises my well-being, my welfare, maybe even my health. I have to think about myself and what would happen to me. And when I start thinking like that, it doesn't seem so bad to behave like the priest or behave like the Levite. It was a dangerous situation. We start thinking about self-preservation because that's what we do. I have a family at home, have kids. I can't let anything happen to me because if something happens to me, what happens to them? And we begin to connect with and even relate to the actions of the priest and the Levite. But which one of those showed to be a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers? It wasn't the priest or the Levite. It wasn't those who showed no self-sacrifice and no mercy. It was the one who wasn't thinking about how to love themselves, but how to love others. There's no circumstance or situation or temperature, for that matter, that will ever be a justifiable excuse for lacking love towards your neighbor. There was nothing praiseworthy in the priest's behavior as he passed by on the other side, leaving the man alone without compassion or love. And there was nothing praiseworthy in the Levite's behavior as he left the man alone to die and walked around his half-dead body. There's no good reason to try to find some justification to be a person who passes by, never stops, never gets involved, and simply stays away. The punchline of the parable, as Jesus told it, was the behavior and the activity of being a loving neighbor to someone who needed compassion, someone who needed love, someone who needed mercy shown to them. There are some times I wish that all I had to do in order to be your neighbor was leave you alone, pass you by, stay away from you. That's far easier to do than to get involved. If all I had to do to be your neighbor was to stay as far away from you as I can and quarantine my life away from yours, then my life would be a whole lot easier. Sometimes I wish that all I had to do was isolate from you and pass you by and take another road around your neighborhood so I don't have to see you and live my life like you have the plague. But that's not being a neighbor. Some people are tempted to justify passing by on the other side because, well, that person has a Trump hat on, or that guy has a Biden-Harris or Bernie bumper sticker on his car, or you're a Democrat, or you're a Republican, or you drive a diesel, or you drive an electric car, or you're a Duke fan, or you're a Kentucky fan, or you're wearing a mask, or you're not wearing a mask over your nose like you're supposed to, or you're not wearing a mask at all. And because you're that way, then I'm justified in passing you by, leaving you alone, not getting involved when I need to be loving you as a neighbor no matter what. It didn't matter what the situation was, didn't matter who the guy was, how he got there, or what his ideas about politics or pandemics were. There was no justifiable excuse for lacking to show love for a neighbor. Jesus said the Samaritan was the good neighbor, so don't try to relate to the priest and justify passing someone by no matter the circumstance. Don't try to relate to the self-preservation of the Levite and justify passing by no matter the circumstance. Go and be like the Good Samaritan. Go and help your neighbor. Go and love your neighbor, and leave the rest in God's hands.